When I was a girl, I loved highlights magazines and the Where's Waldo books. There was always something hidden waiting to be discovered, and I knew it was there. I knew if I looked hard enough, I would find what was hidden in plain sight. And the certainty of knowing it was there and that I wasn't wasting my time is what spurred me forward, even when I felt like I was getting nowhere. Have you ever wondered why Jesus taught in parables? Why he chose stories instead of theological lectures? What if that wasn't just a communication strategy, but what if it was an invitation to a way of seeing and searching for a mystery hidden in plain sight? Today, I want to talk to you about reading the world like a parable, not just reading scripture like a parable, but the world, culture, news, nature, your own life, all of it. A parable is a story with layers, and it reveals truth for those who are willing to look deeper. The world is like that too. And Jesus, the master of parables, is also a master of signs. I am currently a doctoral student studying theosemiotics. And theosemiotics is the study of signs and symbols throughout the world, beyond just linguistics, but also visual, auditory, tactical forms, as well as the analysis of signs and symbols that are found in Scripture. Simply put, I am a detective of the obvious, I am a student of story, and I embrace the mystery of the not yet known. So when I say we need to read the world like a parable, what I'm meaning is we must live attentively. We have to notice symbols. We need to listen for sacred echoes, to believe that the Spirit is still speaking in and through creation, culture, and even crisis. This is the heart of semiotic discipleship. Jesus didn't teach theology, he interpreted reality. He saw lilies and spoke of trust. He watched a fig tree and named judgment. He saw a widow's offering and he called it worship. Jesus read the world as if it were alive with meaning, not just rules and systems, but symbols and stories. He wasn't just a rabbi or a miracle worker. He was a master semiotician. To follow Jesus is to learn to see as he saw. It's to train our eyes and our ears, not only in scripture, but in our surroundings. I see people all of the time posting questions like, what is this generation longing for? What is this culture crying out about underneath all of its noise? Or what do our scars symbolize? What is the sacred whisper behind the cultural shouting? And in those questions, we actually find the answer if we just put our curiosity glasses on and observe and listen very closely. There are two ways that we can look at the world. The first is as a battlefield. The second as a sacred story. And a battlefield has enemies, a story has meaning. And too many leaders today are trained for battle, but not for interpretation. But what if we trained our leaders to be readers, not just of scripture, but of moments, of culture, and of the human heart? In semiotic terms, the world is not flat or random. It is full of signs. And those signs are meant to be read, not ignored. They're parables embodied in plain sight, and you just need the Spirit's eyes to see. That same Spirit who inspired the writers of Scripture also saturates creation with signs. Just as we trace symbolic meaning through biblical narratives, we're also invited to trace God's presence through the unfolding narrative of the world around us. The semiotics of Scripture train us to see how meaning is embedded in objects, gestures, landscapes, and repetition. The reed is never just a reed. A path through the sea is never just an escape route. And when we become fluent in that symbolic language of Scripture, we begin to recognize that the same divine author is still writing. He is writing in our cities, in our news feeds, and in our daily lives. The signs in Scripture help decode the signs of the world. And the more we learn to recognize sacred symbol in the biblical story, the more we're able to discern God's fingerprints in the present story. And that's how we become not just readers of the word, but readers of the world. Understanding that same semiotic thread runs through both. Let me give you an example from my own doctoral research. It's the symbol of the reed in Scripture. Now, this is a small insight into what I mean that signs and symbols are hidden in plain sight, ready to be revealed to the world. There's a line in the Gospels that might seem small at first glance, and it's in Matthew chapter 27, verse 29, and it says this: "They put a reed in Jesus's hand and mocked him." Now, it seems like nothing, just a prop for mockery. But when you trace the reed across scripture, the stunning semiotic thread begins to emerge. So in Exodus chapter 2, we see under Pharaoh's decree that the Egyptian empire demanded that all Hebrew infant males were to be executed by the midwives by being thrown into the Nile River. It was a commandment that was meant to prevent the Hebrews from growing too numerous, so that way they could be controlled by those in authority in Egypt. However, in Exodus 2, a Hebrew mother, out of desperation to preserve her 3-month-old child from inevitable death, weaves together a small teva. It's the same Hebrew word used in Genesis for Noah's Ark. It's made out of papyrus reeds, and it sets it adrift among the reeds in the Nile. Now, ancient Egyptians believed that the reeds were this liminal space where the cosmic forces of ordered eternity and chaos met together. So within these reeds floated this prophetic promise that was neither fully hidden nor fully exposed within the stalks along the shore. And as the story proceeds, the daughter of Pharaoh finds this baby, draws him out of the reeds, and names him Moses. In this first mention of reeds in scripture, it's not merely background shrubbery, but it is a chosen prophetic foreshadowing for the first act of salvation and deliverance. Now, the second appearance of the reeds comes several chapters later, and I promise you is no less traumatic. So as the story of Moses continues with his new understanding of his Hebraic lineage, he is now ushering the Hebrew people out of Egypt under the temporary blessing of Pharaoh, only to find themselves in this aggressive pursuit by the Egyptians hours later. And in Exodus 14 and 15, the people of Israel are standing at Yam Suf, which is translated the Sea of Reeds, with this future of this promised land before them and the empire of slavery behind them. As the waters miraculously part by the wind of Yahweh, order now takes over the chaos of untamed water, and the water is restrained. Now, once again, deliverance and salvation come through the reeds. And it is Yahweh who triumphs over chaos. And the Sea of Reeds now becomes this liminal space of cosmic reversal, where Egypt's power is now drowned and Israel's identity is now emerging as a people who have the favor of Yahweh upon them. Now we fast forward to Ezekiel chapter 40. And after seeing a vision of the destruction of Israel's enemies, Ezekiel is taken to a high mountain. And there he sees this man who looks like he's shining in bronze, and he's holding a measuring reed. Now, this man uses this reed to measure the boundaries, the chambers, and the gates of the new temple. But this isn't a copy of the old temple. It's something new. It's the center of God's cosmic rule. So from this temple, water flows by God's commands, boundaries are drawn, space is made holy. What was once this fragile stalk just swaying in Exodus, it now becomes this tool used to mark off what is sacred. And the message becomes very clear. What is measured by God belongs to him. With this bronze man measures the boundaries, the chambers, and the gates of the new temple. And this fragile but prevalent stalk in Exodus, swaying in the water, now measures the holy water and the boundaries of divine demarcation in the sanctified space and the holiness that is talked about in Ezekiel. Held with authority by the man of bronze, the message is clear to Ezekiel. The measured belongs to God. Now, if we fast forward into the New Testament, in Revelation chapter 11, we see the Apostle John with a measuring reed entrusted into his hand. And it's to measure not a physical building, but the Christian community with distinction, to withhold measuring the outer courts, which had been given over to the nations for a time. Now, this mirror to Ezekiel's prophetic vision in Ezekiel 40, of this reed, it demonstrates that the people of God under the new covenant are now the temple of God, as they have already passed through the deliverance of Jesus's resurrected temple. Now, going back to Matthew 27, tucked within this larger dramatic account of the crucifixion is a small but very powerful detail, a symbol layered with meaning, and it is laced in mockery. In Matthew 27, we see Jesus at the brink of his death. He is crowned with thorns, he is robed in scarlet, and he is given a reed as a scepter. The reed, the symbol of deliverance and judgment, is now used as a prop in a cruel theater of empire. The soldiers laughed, mocked, and knelt before their mockingly adorned prisoner in efforts to humiliate the condemned before he died. They then stripped the reed scepter from his hands and they beat him over the skull that is wrapped in a crown of thorns, causing his brow to be further bloodied and bruised. That same reed that beat Jesus, this reed known as the liminal space between cosmic order and chaos and divine and common, holy and unholy, that reed he held in his hand was taken from him and weaponized, causing painful blows to his head. This reed that Jesus held in his hand was no accident. This hollow reed placed into his grasp was the sign of a kingdom he meant to bring and would reign over. It is not a scepter of domination, but of divine meekness, humility, and healing. It is not a rod of iron, but a bruised reed unbroken. And this fragile reed is a symbol of an empire unstable being placed in the hands of an eternal king. Those soldiers had no idea what they were doing when they positioned this king with this reed scepter in his hands. Yet heaven itself must have gasped with prophetic exclamation when his fingers tightly grasped that bloodied measuring rod. But this was no accident. The reed is a through line. It is a symbol of liminality, the in-between, judgment and mercy, fragility and kingship, holiness, salvation. In Revelation 21, the reed appears again, but this time it is a golden measuring rod. It's no longer fragile, no longer mockery, but now it declares what is eternally secure. It measures the New Jerusalem. That same reed that once bruised the Messiah becomes the golden scepter of his eternal rule. This is what it means to read the world like a parable. It is to recognize that nothing is meaningless in the hands of God. Not a reed, not a scar, not a moment of mockery, not a failed plan. Nothing is meaningless in the hands of God. Take the reed, for example. In the smallest detail, we find this divine drama unfolding because parables hide their truth in plain sight. When we trace the symbol across time, we begin to see the shape of salvation. A fragile stalk becomes a scepter. A bruised object becomes a signpost. In this way, symbols reveal God's divine hand in his creation. Symbols reveal how God writes redemption into the very fabric of creation, history, and human experience. As pastors, as missionaries, church leaders, nonprofit leaders, and followers of Jesus, you are not just strategists. You are interpreters. You are living symbols. You stand at the border of chaos and order, culture and kingdom, and you need tools not only for management, but for meaning making. It is so important that we are trained to see, to live with sacred attentiveness, to read the cultural moment with kingdom clarity. This is more than being relevant. It's about discernment. It's about living prophetically, symbolically, and spirit-led. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 13, verse 9 through 16, he says, "Whoever has ears, let them hear." And the disciples came to him and asked, "Why do you speak to the people in parables?" And he replied, "Because the knowledge of the secret of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. Whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. This is why I speak to them in parables. Through seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. For you will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts, and in turn, I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear." Let me offer this encouragement to you. The world feels chaotic right now. Wars loom, systems are shaking, scandal seems to be bleeding through every corner of the church. Pastors are weary, leaders are disillusioned, burned out, betrayed. There's spiritual fatigue, and this is all too common. But even in this storm, the Spirit has not gone silent. Even now, signs are being placed like breadcrumbs before your feet. Even in the darkness, symbols are glowing faintly, waiting for someone with eyes to see them. So let me ask you, what signs are surfacing around you? What moments, phrases, or images seem to echo again and again in your life? What's been hiding in plain sight, just waiting for you to notice? Ask the Spirit to reveal what you've been overlooking. Ask God to pull back that veil, because what you thought was ordinary actually may be sacred. What might feel confusing might actually be a key. And what seems insignificant could actually carry the mystery of the kingdom. Look again. Listen deeply. The parable may already be unfolding before you, because the world is not random. It is revelatory. Just like something as simple as a reed has conveyed this deep truth that God brings order out of chaos and freedom and deliverance through murky waters. It brings us promise of future salvation and a symbol of an eternal kingdom. What else is God speaking through? It's like those highlight magazines or those Where Waldo books that I loved as a child. There is always something hidden waiting to be discovered, and I knew it was there. I knew if I looked long enough, I would find it. And it kept me searching even when my eyes blurred and the answers weren't obvious. And this is how the Spirit invites us to look at our world and look at the scriptures with that same childlike hope, with that faith that something sacred is hidden in plain sight. And it is not a waste to keep looking. Look again. Listen deeply. That parable may already be unfolding before you.